The Community Preservation Meeting, April 8th. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:34.
We'll have a motion to open.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
All right. So first item on the agenda this evening was just an update on the 10% set-asides for the warrant. After speaking with the town accountant, we're going to bump those set-asides up to 78,600, I believe, is the number that was settled upon. And that was, it's still the same 10%. That was just an adjustment based on her accounting.
And there's four set-asides, or are there
Three.
Okay.
All right, next up, we have discussion on the CPA plan. So I'm not really sure the best way to go about this and how we're gonna do it. We had the one that Mike had prepared, and then also have one that Rebecca had prepared. Kind of cherry pick from one to the other, and kind of decide what it is we want to do. That's the one Mike had done, if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, I had given it
And is
out at a
this the
previous
Rebecca-
meeting.
the Rebecca version?
Rebecca version, Mike version. So the goal with this is to get a consensus from the board of how we want to go about doing it, rather than just come from one direction. So I want everybody to be able to have a say on it as we're going through it. So I think the introductions between the two of them were fairly similar. Where the one Rebecca did had a link to the CPA bylaw. Mike, yours has the whole bylaw spelled out in it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, other than that, I didn't see a ton of differences between them. But if anyone has any input or thoughts they'd like to see in there or not see in there, we can note it accordingly and hopefully come up with a worthwhile plan.
Well, maybe because Mike would be familiar with Mike's plan most.
Accurate.
Maybe it would be a good idea, or maybe helpful, just for moving the ball, to see where he sees distinctions between his work and Rebecca's work, that where something might be added or deleted. I bet he's got some thoughts about it.
Well,
Make sure you're green.
I,
I got you.
yeah, thanks. I think that for the most part, the biggest difference perhaps is that I got into more specific stuff about our goals for each category.
Can you provide a good example?
Let's see. Well, for instance, on mine, page 11, I guess, I talk about talking about historic preservation. And so,
That corresponds with page 7 in the other one.
okay, 7. So in mine, thanks. Okay. You know, what Rebecca says is kind of a little more generic than mine. But, you know, she does talk about preservation of historic buildings, restoration of cemetery, historic burial grounds, development of interpretive signage. Yeah, but I kind of go into, you know, specific areas, Washington Street, churches, Elm Square, Main Street, cemeteries, and then historic documents, and then come up with 4 goals, which again are very specific towards those general areas that I already talked about. Preservation of historic buildings along Washington Street, Elm Square, and Main Street areas, further address the needs of our cemeteries, identify dedicated spaces in town for historic documents and artifacts, and assess the inventory of historic documents in town and means of preservation. So she doesn't, well, she's got
I-
goals, but, you know, they're kind of generic.
I tend to lean towards liking the generic. I don't necessarily think, we should be focused on only Washington Street, Elm Square, and Main Street. If anywhere in town has a historic building or area, why would we exclude that?
Well, we wouldn't exclude it, but remember that this document is supposed to be reviewed every year. So, what I did was kind of, again, anybody could have come up with some ideas. I focused on kind of my personal knowledge about what's been done regarding the cemeteries, regarding documents, regarding buildings in some of these areas. So that's why I put that together. But I think if we addressed all 4 of those goals, it's a miracle. So probably in next year, our project might include one thing to address one of those 4 goals, probably, right? So that would be a good thing. I'd be happy with that. Whereas if it's generic, well, we're not really giving anybody enough guidelines to what we're looking for.
I have an idea that I think may be palatable to everybody. So I too think that, keeping the goals generic is a good idea because things may come up over the course of the year and, things may change or whatnot. Or we may identify different places or different things. We want to make sure that we're able to catch it under the umbrella. But under the potential projects, I don't think that there would be any problem with putting a link to the things that you've kind of laid out. And so if somebody wants a little more detail, they can find it, but it doesn't make the document so weighty at itself as, gosh, there's this 30-page document, I'm not going to read it. But if there's somebody who's genuinely interested in that specific part and talking about, okay, well, what kinds of things might we do? This is a good, your breakout is a good listing of things that might be good projects. And so, if they're listed under potential projects, you have the sort of basic generic concept, but here are some other possibilities. For someone who might be more interested in getting into the nitty gritty of those kinds of things. So I would suggest that we, on that portion, stick with the Rebecca version, but in the potential projects part, break out, all these things that Mike has talked about and spend some time and effort.
Now, are these projects that have been talked about and haven't made it to fruition yet? Are they thought, where did these ideas come from? Just,
My ideas?
yeah,
Well-
is it from past meetings? Is it from prior years?
It's from many of our prior projects, these things are related to. For instance, it talks about two of the things have to do with historic documents. So we've funded, I would say, at least 4 projects in the past, 2 for the library and 2 for town clerk on dealing with historic projects, historic documents, sorry.
Yeah,
So that's kind of where that one came from. We've done a lot of work in it, but yet we don't really know anything about what the historic documents we've even got. Where are they? What other ones are we missing? Because obviously it's an important thing. And if once we did identify them, where should they continue to rest only with the town clerk? Should this include the Historic Society and their efforts there at Washington Hall? So that's kind of where that comes from.
yeah.
I mean, looking at these particular, under resources and needs, these are all, I mean, it's all reasonable, just sort of, kind of background that somebody who doesn't know about it might, like find interesting and helpful. I mean, I don't have a problem with, like having a link to like those things. I think it's work that Mike's put together. It's,
No, I agree, and I don't think we're gonna obviously solve all this right now, right here.
Yeah.
But if we get some ideas, we can kind of try a draft two, combining some things together, and then look at it again. I see this as a 6-month project, not a six-minute project.
Yeah, and so what I think is our goal should be 2026.
Agreed.
If we can get this done by like September, that will be useful, because then people will be looking at it to look at what the next round of projects might be.
Yeah, I mean, we're 20 years in and we haven't had one. What's
Well,
another 6 months?
right, so it's, we've never done anything like this. We've had plans, but not like this.
Yeah.
well, then it's a worthy effort and it's worth spending some time on, I think.
So again, if we just spitball around a little bit, I'll take some notes, and then I'll try and snowball the things together, and we'll distribute them and see how it came out, and if we agree, disagree, or otherwise.
So,
So maybe homework for the next meeting is, okay, guys, everybody's got to read both of these plans and,
That was the homework the last meeting.
yeah, well, guess what?
Did you not do your homework, Pat?
Well, let's do a survey.
I've read them ad nauseum.
Yeah, I bet you have.
I did half.
Well, what comments do you have?
Well, I understand where Mike is coming from as far as what he has been involved in over the many years of service. But we have other historic buildings in town. I don't know if it would come, but what about the Little Red Schoolhouse?
Well, let me ask a dumb question, I guess. Is there a list of the historic buildings in town somewhere that we can get a hold of?
I don't believe there is.
Is that something that maybe we should have as a goal of something to do, perhaps? Is to
Maybe.
document all the historic properties?
yeah, or it's
Like an inventory?
Yeah,
Who's our historic person?
Linda.
she's not.
Are you talking about just the historic buildings owned by the town?
I would say any
Yeah. Town
building in
owner,
town, town owned or not. It can't be, that place ain't that big, it
I
can't be
would
that.
think it would if you're going to include housing. You got a lot of historic houses along the lower end of toward the town square, Elm Park, that area. I think that would be a tremendous amount of property. And give me a definition of a historic building.
Well, something older than 50 years old.
I would imagine that it would need some level of significance as well. Just because something's old doesn't make it historic, it just makes it old.
No, but, there are definitions available to us, so.
Well, putting together a first draft.
I
is not
agree,
bad.
I agree with Mike, but you got the house that Johnny Carlton used to live in on Main Street is late 1700s. My house, which I sit 175 feet off the river, was a barn in 1830. The peg frame is still there. So, that, I've lived with it. The floors run every which way,
I mean-
standard things like that. The old town hall.
Well, maybe we start with town-owned properties and see what that comes up with.
Then I don't know.
Because my house was built in 1960, it's by
Right.
no means historic, it's
Right.
just old.
But I don't know what, the building that Greg Stock used to own is now owned by another gentleman in the center of town.
Sold it.
That was built in the late 1800s. So, but I think it would be worth the effort to establish
A list.
both commercial and some residential properties on a list.
Right, right, it's probably gotta be more than old, but it, if you say historically significant, it would, like, you can say, this is one of the historically significant, and here's why.
Yes, I agree.
Right,
I think the Claire Walsh probably could add a lot to that, too.
I'd love to have a conversation with her about it. Maybe I'll
The other thing
take a
is,
trip down to Washington Hall someday.
yeah,
you could also,
historically significant building.
with the town assessor, you go through it, and it's got the date of the original building. It's a long, arduous task, but I wouldn't mind putting in a little time on it.
Absolutely, please.
Oh, with your
So that's kind of-
historic.
So that's kind of under the,
And you ain't too far behind.
so that's kind of under the umbrella of historical preservation, identifying potential future projects.
What year are you?
Yeah, I feel like that kind of
I was
covers,
born in
you know,
43.
these are
Right.
historical
49.
things. What can we do
Sure.
to maximize them or otherwise?
It's okay.
Claire and/or Linda, either the commission or the society may already have a list, so
Right. So that's a good first call, before people start going into the
save us
registers.
time, yes. So, back to the plan, so, I don't have any trouble with, going with the more generic, description there in most cases. I don't know if maybe you would take, my goals, say, and put them in an appendix to it.
Well, I feel like-
Under potential projects,
I feel like they kind of fit under the potential projects.
Right,
And there could honestly stand to be a section for past successful projects as well.
right.
But this is called an action plan. So,
No, agreed, but, if I was thinking of something, I'd be like, oh, what'd somebody else do? Maybe it sparks an idea.
just thinking,
It may not go here.
Right.
yes. I hear your
yeah,
point.
I mean,
yeah.
if this is supposed
The
to.
website will have that information.
Yeah.
The, I think maybe, again, using the idea of like a link or an appendix might be a good thing, because if you're setting up this action plan as sort of a template, right? And the sort of big picture stays the same while the sort of smaller pieces are gonna move from year to year, then instead of rewriting the whole thing every year and sort of reinventing the wheel, then you're just basically working on
Plugging in new projects.
plugging in the new potential projects and, like deleting the things that maybe don't make sense anymore, or, like the smaller pieces can fit under that big umbrella while we're still having these sort of larger goals that are a little more vague, of course, but also hit the mark. That way, you're not redrafting this thing and spending the time and the effort and the resources to do it every year, but you'll make tweaks where appropriate.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what the goal would be, is to get like a base plan down with, like you say, just some things that you change every year, to keep up with the times. It should be a simple edit, not a total rebuild.
Right.
So would the basic document then be, what is the Community Preservation Act, and what type of committee makes it up? Like, is that where we would put,
Well, I think that's,
Change?
can you hit your microphone?
It's to your point, actually. If this is the action plan, it's what is CPC gonna do?
right,
And so when it said, sure, it has to say what it is, but then after that, it's talking about what are the goals of the various arms. So community, historic preservation, we're talking about, okay, these sort of vaguer goals are overarching principles, but then here are the potential projects that are in the works now, or potential, like could be happening or could be not happening. And then, so that way, your action plan still talks about what are you planning to do?
right.
And I think your point is very well taken.
I think there's some level of need for some public input on this as well. Maybe after we get the skeleton set, we can do a public input session and kind of gather some ideas from more than just the six of us here.
That's a great idea. And also, they may have potential projects, they may want to see some goals that aren't out there, or, you know, it could be super helpful. I think that's a great idea. What else have you noticed in your draft versus the Rebecca draft that are things that you think
Well,
are lacking?
can we just go through, I mean, we hit on historic preservation. I get the theory, but let's just take a look at, you know, open space, recreation, and,
okay.
you know, let's hit all four of them real quick. And we're kind of like staying in one.
It's a good
Like I
idea.
say, we're not gonna get all this in one meeting, I know that, so we'll run it till we're sick and tired of talking about it. And then we'll move on to something else and pick this back up.
It's a good idea. So open space on Mike's plan is page 13. And on
6.
Rebecca's, it's 6.
Yeah.
I like the goals. Oh, I like Mike's protect the small rural character as well. Maybe we'll do a merge of the goals on that. They're very similar, but Mike's has one or two that I feel like should also be in here.
I would add, as we're thinking about these topics and how to, you know, decide what Groveland wants, I would want to remind everybody of the master plan that was done, I think it was 2023 in the fall. That was a big sort of statement of, this is what Groveland wants, and so.
Yeah, no, I feel like we should absolutely
Yeah,
dive into that.
matching that up with what we're talking about in our CPC action plan
Is anybody, just looking at the notes on Rebecca's, the Groveland Open Space and Recreation Plan, is anybody familiar with that?
Yeah.
I've not seen it myself.
Yeah. Then there's also the comprehensive plan from 2023.
that's what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
Housing production plan, 2024 to 2029, and then the open space and rec plan is 2020 to 2027.
So maybe we'll add that as a homework assignment, kind of take a look at that plan and see what we can pick out of there.
Yeah, they're all online on the town website, I think.
All right, any other thoughts on open space?
So affordable housing,
When they talk about habitat protection, is it just assume that habitat protection means habitat protection for like pollinators and all the specific,
I would imagine, I mean,
Living-
didn't we buy a bunch of land for turtles?
we did,
I would imagine that would fall under habitat protection.
yeah, right. But I'm just thinking like, do we have to, you know, that this.
I don't know that we have to be specific. Again, I like the general,
Yeah.
you know,
So you
keep it
just
vague.
Assume it would include that.
Yeah, or at least if you could make the argument that it fits under that
Right.
umbrella.
Yeah. And then when you're talking about specific projects from year to year,
Right.
you could put in this is the butterflies thing, and
Right,
that's the
right.
turtles thing.
Right, okay.
I know that I just finished spending 7 years of the Pentucket building, and the folks from West Newbury presented they wanted the outside plantings to be habitat-friendly to West Newbury, since the school is basically in West Newbury. But this was basically done after they formed their committee with only 6 months left to finish the school. So it was a little difficult. We worked with an architect and they found several items, but they didn't get everything they wanted, and they were not happy about that. But
We're a mile away from West Newbury. How different can the habitats
Yeah, I
be?
think the
Yes,
habitats would be,
But the point was that
right.
if we get a application for a specific thing, then the applicant has to be aware that, okay, if you can, please use the following species and stuff like that. You don't want to get down to the home that they have to use only, 4.5-foot sunflowers and, that kind of thing, but keep it in generalities.
Well, they talk about the importance of wild and native now, because they require less care, they require less water, they're meant to live here. So that certainly is something that should be kept in mind.
Yeah, but what we ran into down there was, we were 5 years into the project, and all of a sudden you get slammed with this.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work. That's why what we're doing here to initiate general categories is good.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the affordable housing.
Looking for that in Mike's.
That's on page 11,
You're 11?
12, 10 and 11.
Excellent. There it is. So Mike's introduces the housing production plan. Rebecca says review the housing production plan.
Yeah. I think this one I feel like we almost have to wait and see what happens with the project that Rebecca put forward this year is really gonna kind of shape what we can and can't do with this.
To establish the housing trust?
Yeah, because until then, there's very little we can actually do.
Which again is why.
And then
the
I
vague
yeah.
characterizations, which would be true whatever the result is.
Yeah, and I look at between some of the goals or the potential projects, I don't know that the town of Groveland should be in the business of developing affordable housing. I think we can certainly assist in that, but I don't know that the town should be taking that on to be a landlord of sorts.
Well,
I-
you
that-
have the
that-
Groveland Housing Authority,
We might have something to say about that topic.
right?
Yeah, speak up, for sure.
No, basically, I represent the Groveland Housing Authority. but
Yeah.
On this committee. Right now, I've been on for 5 years, a little shy. And we are 100% filled. And when there's a vacancy, they go in and they do some maintenance, clean it up, and an interview for the next people, and there is a wait list that is substantial.
What's the sort of magnitude of the wait list, if you had it, like ballpark?
On one category is 6,000.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Right now, if you're
But you're federal, right, so you can't exclude.
we have two. We have, over here in the back of us, the building here, is 58 units that are federal.
Yeah,
On Gardner Street, there's 2 units that are state, and on Cannon Hill Extension, there is 1 unit that is mandated and financed by state, and now back here is financed by the HUD.
and under either one of those, can you restrict it to Groveland residents?
No. If you were, we had a situation a few years back where we had a resident here in town, and it was not convenient because of transportation and everything else, so they got transferred to Haverhill. And it solved a lot of issues. So, right now, we're in the middle of a 5-year plan to, whatever improvements are needed to go over there. They're replacing the doors that were put in 1984.
Are there any plans for expansion?
No, because basically there's no land.
Kim, what do you say the waiting list is over there? Any idea? How long a waiting list is there?
Minimum of 4 years.
Do you know how many people are on that list? I know it's hard to judge how long
There
it'll
was-
be.
There was 6,000 applicants.
6,000. I heard you mention the 6,000. I said, that can't be the,
Oh,
That can't be the
I happened to
waiting
take that paperwork out, but it's sitting on my dining room table.
But it's a lot, and
Yes,
there's a
it is.
need, and this is one of the umbrellas under which CPC funds can be used. And like you said, there's a vehicle for using those funds if and only if at this point Rebecca gets the trust established, that's on this year's town warrant, right?
Well, consultation, if you will, to what do we need to do to set it up
so it's
and
not even
what
that,
we can
it's
put in
Yeah,
it.
it's-
And then the trust would come as like a
Next
next
year.
year's project.
Then the other thing with that trust is there is a pocket of money that is sitting in a trust fund. And that cannot be touched until the town forms a corporation to administer it.
Right. And I think this is,
But
Well,
what
that's
that
what
paperwork
this
that
is
she
about.
put in
That's
for,
exactly what that's
to
about.
get that all started rolling.
Gotcha.
So you're looking at least a year, year and a half to get anything accessible, let's put it that way.
So, Kim, is the Groveland Housing Authority interested in actually accessing money and getting more grants to build more housing to relieve this backlog?
There has been no discussion on it. Our chairperson basically we have not had the entire committee meet in the community room for quite a long time, due to fears by some of the committee members about COVID and so forth.
When was the last time you had a quorum?
Huh?
When was the last time you had a quorum?
We have quorum every month, but it's basically on
Zoom.
Zoom.
I see.
So, aren't there a couple of positions open up for reelection this May?
Yes.
So we should be thinking about who we're voting for, right? because it seems like what you're saying is the committee is not being very effective because some of the members aren't letting it be effective.
I think it's a combination of items. This is only my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think this is the time or the place for this
No,
discussion.
no, I know, Adam, we're going off on a little tangent here, but I just figured, since we're talking about it, let Kim give us a quick explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is that some of the committee people have been there a long time, and they don't want, there is no initiative to do other things.
Well, hopefully if we get a fund set up and there's money to spend, people will be interested in spending the money.
Seems like that is,
And we'll light the fire.
Yeah, but that is basically, that large trust fund has been sitting in the town coffers for years.
well, I mean, the good news is.
We're doing something about it.
The good news is
Right
in the
now,
right
we have
now, it's
progress.
moving, and there's not, that's, it doesn't matter what happened 5 years ago if we're doing this now. We're getting ready for, the next year.
You're stepping forward.
Right.
And once we have that set up, I mean, we could certainly reach out to the housing authority and let them know to let us help you.
Yeah.
And this,
Can I
yes,
ask a question, Adam?
sure.
And I don't know a lot about this, but I thought that there was talk some time ago when 40B first came around, that towns, if they took the initiative, could then basically control and design and have input. So, I think I heard you say something about maybe we don't want to become, I don't know if you said the word landlords.
Yeah, I don't,
But I'm wondering, how are some of the towns doing this in Massachusetts that are proactive and
so
are,
I think you're talking about two different things, because with
Is it?
with the 40B, that's a planning board issue, to some level.
Well, actually, I don't think it is, because the planning board,
Or is
planning
it-
board's hands are usually tied in those situations.
Well, once it gets to the state, it is, but if they came in to do a friendly and worked and the town would work with them, then the town could have some say, but if the town doesn't want to work with them, they can just go right to the state and then they can do whatever they want.
right,
But again, if we hit I think to your point, if we are hitting the required numbers and whatnot, then
Then it
the
keeps them
automatic 40B isn't permitted, and you don't have a Garrison Street situation. So I think a lot of the talk about being proactive
Right.
and managing, this growth is happening in one way or in another, but if we would rather have us, the town of Groveland, control it rather than the state or the feds.
Absolutely.
So if we have to be a landlord in some way or shape or form.
No, I just-
Maybe it's not the worst thing when confronted with the other options.
I look at
Good point.
the cost of maintaining and
Sure.
running a
Oh, sure.
building,
but I
and
feel like maybe there's an opportunity where we could, I don't know who or how, so I'm just throwing this out, but it almost seems like if there's money, why aren't we maybe creating a trio of people that could somehow explore, propose, I'm not sure what it would take.
And again, I think once the fund is set up, that, I think that will
the
be
catalyst
part of,
that's-
part of the next step.
Right.
No one wants to do all the work for money they can't spend, that, still has to pass through town meeting.
Yeah, but it's
And then
just-
still needs another project to get
It just seems
established.
like everything takes time, and it almost seems like if you can do a few things at the same time, there might be a perfect storm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I attended a meeting about a year and a half ago. A company wanted to come in and put a complex up on School Street. Basically, it was where Walter McComsky used to live, I can't remember his name.
I would know him even if you said it.
But anyway.
You're talking about Walt McKee's?
Walter McKee's. But, so we all sat here, waited for them to show up. And one representative come in and he says, we decided to not pursue it. The reason being is that, they wouldn't let them tie into the sewer. they would have had to expend some more money to put in pump station and so forth. They were hoping just to connect down to the old railroad where where the trail is. But that is under the jurisdiction of the power company, not Groveland, but the main company. So they said, no, we don't want a sewer line underneath our power lines, the sewer drainage pipe. And so that, basically, they said, oh, well, thank you for coming in and meeting with us, but we're not interested. And they turned and walked away.
Well, there's certainly a lot of hurdles to getting across the finish line, but at least activating the money, like Madam says, I think is gonna be a good catalyst.
Yeah.
And it's in the works, and that's happening regardless of what we're saying here.
Agreed.
So,
All right, any more different thoughts on affordable housing? Want to throw in there? Let's move on to recreation. And then I think I think I've had enough after that.
that's said in a very bad way.
There's only so much you can stare at the things before it just turns into a blur.
So again, I see this as a situation where I like the Rebecca vague goals, and then you adding in a link to these much more specific, maybe this would be good, and maybe that would be good.
Yeah.
As the recreation board member on this committee, I'm in agreement with the kinds of things that Mike is saying in his document. But again.
If you look at the notes she has on hers on the next page, consider developing a townwide recreational master plan to prioritize facility improvements. Is that something
I mean-
the rec committee would be interested in pursuing?
It
Maybe
is.
it could be a joint venture?
It's definitely something we can talk about. We have a lot of master plans about things.
Yeah, no, I know, and they sit there and collect dust and no one reads them, I get it.
So, having a specific game plan about what's happening fiscal year this year and next year feels okay, given
I-
resources that come in, but.
Again, I back that out to be way more vague. What would you like to see? Oh, all right, Washington Park is all set, that there's nothing needed over there for a little while.
Right.
We've concentrated on the Pines, where else can we kind of, spread it out around town type of thing?
I mean, I think in some ways, I think it's duplicative to some of the master plan stuff that we've, they say prioritize the Pines, prioritize these various things. And so, and I do think we are actively doing that. The trails are a big priority, and I think they're being addressed. And so, I do see the right kinds of movement here, but yeah, I mean, we can certainly talk about whether something more specific, just geared toward recreation is appropriate. We are talking about a project for 2026 about, lighting going in at the Pines, and it's, fairly comprehensive, and we've got some things, some irons in the fire as it is. So I feel pretty comfortable that Groveland is moving on these recreation topics that are, kind of near and dear to a lot of our hearts. Both active recreation and passive.
You guys got anything on that? Good.
No, I just took a spin through the Pines and noticed that the tennis court is in, the pickleball court is in.
Yep.
And skate park is on its way.
Skate park's starting anytime now.
Yeah,
They got the ramp going out there.
I see they've started. I understand from Rebecca that she combined the Shanahan project with that ramp. and save some serious money
Yeah.
Good.
using the same contractor. So, they did get the ramp in, they've still got to finish handrails, lighting, so forth, so on.
Yeah.
And then they're actively working, they got the drainage tied in down at Shanahan the other day.
Yeah, that's ready for pavement. They're waiting for
Well,
that.
no, they dug through the pavement they laid for the driveway for the old Dr. Dark house. And they tied into it, so,
Yeah,
There's a-
they're literally waiting for the hot top plants to open
Yeah.
to
Right.
pave that.
Yeah, so again, I mean, as far as recreation is concerned, not only are things moving forward, but they're moving forward in what appears to be a very fiscally responsible and thoughtful and unified way. I think one of the complaints, when I got onto recreation and then the planning board was that the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand enough. I think there's a lot more collaboration, and I think Rebecca and Annie have been a very good conduit for that information, a really good base point for getting the feedback out to all the various boards to make sure everyone's on the same page, so we're not wasting money through, duplicative efforts or, those sorts of things. And we're trying to look to see, I heard yesterday that our budget came down to, was up
$100.
by $100, and in a $22 million expenditure, that's pretty eye-opening. So, thinking that, as we are all very conscious to cost and whatnot, that at least the projects that are moving forward now are, being moved forward with people with an eye to, keeping the dollars where they need to be. I think we're making good progress.
Well, I think that's the difference between having a town administrator running the town.
Not just
That we
any
didn't-
town administrator either.
Well, no, obviously, but even, just what it was like previously with nobody ultimately in charge except the finance director, and so it was a lot more difficult to keep things moving.
Well, so good news on recreation.
All right, so I'm gonna take the list of notes I made here, and I'm gonna make draft version 2.0. We'll run through that next meeting. You tell me I did a terrible job, and then we'll hash it out again.
Never.
You're gonna take.
I'm gonna put 'em
create a
together.
new document, basically,
Yeah,
with parts of both,
I feel like we'll see what that looks like, because I don't really know.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Discussion of grant agreement edits. I would like to table this until we have a full board, because I know a couple people that are not present tonight had questions that were brought up in the last meeting. We do need to get on it, and I think it's going to have to get done the next meeting, but I would like to wait until everyone is present.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. All right. Next up, discussion on CPA acknowledgement signage. You're up, Mike.
Yes, so, a couple of years ago, the committee voted to put signs on any project that hadn't done that. So previous to, I believe, about 4 years ago, it wasn't part of the requirement in the RFP to include signage for your project. So most of the projects prior to, I would say, 2022 don't have signs on them, don't say anything how it was funded. So the committee said, all right, we should do that. So I did check with Stu Saginaw at CPA Coalition, and he said that we can indeed use administrative money for signs.
How many signs are we talking?
Could be 30,
And do we, have we got any pricing on it?
no. What we need,
Well, I'm curious if, you know, we've got people including signs in projects going forward. Should we just be getting 50 signs and keeping them here, and every time someone does a project, give them a sign?
we could do that.
I feel like that just make it simple, and then it keeps it so they're all the same.
Well, right.
Keeps some
I think
uniformity.
they should be consistent.
Are they, is it a fairly generic sign? It's not project-specific?
Yes. It's basically can say, you know, thank you to the residents of Groveland, funded by our community preservation funds, something to that
Are
effect.
some of the signs different and more specific? or-
Well, yeah, I mean, you could say when the project was funded, what the project, you know, say, you could say, you know, Washington Hall funded in, you know,
Yeah.
2010 and 2012, or something to that effect.
Hmm.
But,
I'm open to entertaining the idea of using administrative funds, but I'd like to know a number first.
well, here's the thing, I will work on this. We need a list of all the sites that need signs, because obviously, like the town clerk project to scan her documents in.
We'll
that's
screw it
not
right on the bookcase.
Well, but, you know, things like that aren't as big of a deal about getting, you know, some kind of sign.
As would be like the Trails project where you're spending a lot, you know, a significant amount of money to.
No, but that, I mean, I look at that Trails project, and that could be 50 signs
Well,
by the time it's all spread out,
no, hopefully it would just be like 6 signs, one at each.
one at each trail,
site.
sure.
But, so I got a couple of designs that, you know, Stuart sent me, but I also have some stuff that we had done before. And I can make a list up of this, say, for the next,
Yeah, why don't
meeting.
we just do that, bring some more information to
Yeah.
the next meeting, and, you know, a sample, and if we can get a, you know, a ballpark quote, are we talking $10 a sign or $100 a
No,
sign?
it probably, see, you know, the other thing is you want to get them installed, so we're not out there with a hammer and a.
Right.
I'm telling
Adam's
you.
willing to go out there with a hammer.
I got a screw gun in the truck, but,
No.
I mean,
So anyway,
we could probably find a high school kid looking for some community service hours,
Well,
maybe-
yes.
maybe a scout.
we could.
Let's be creative here.
I'm sure the scout group would jump at it because it's basically community support.
You get your badge. Nice.
Merit badges for everybody. But if you do have them include installation, can you have them break it down separate so we can kind of
Yeah,
bat that
for a
around?
sign, how much is it gonna?
Or, you know, signs only and then signs plus installation? Because I would think nothing of going around on a Saturday and hanging 50 signs. I'd actually enjoy
But
it.
you need to have like a frame and everything for it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
not, and it has to
trickier.
It might
go
be,
into.
Well,
it might be more involved than
No,
hammering a screw gun.
No,
It's trickier than you think,
Yeah.
believe me.
I would
But-
think so.
But there would be economies of scale of getting one person to do
Yeah.
other things and things
Right,
like that.
if they're
So-
all the
so-
same, it's
right.
gonna be
So, you know, like, it's different than if we do it sort of haphazardly and whatnot. So
Yeah,
Getting the list is the good first step.
Yeah.
Breaking down what the potential cost is with actual numbers is a good first step. And then-
Right.
Then we can bandy about
Yeah.
who's going around with screw.
no, agree. I just want to, you know,
fair. It's
if it's 10 grand to go hang the things, then we need to come
Right.
up with a better plan.
No, I like the idea of us taking it back over and not relying on.
Well, then you get the same sign every
Yes,
time.
Right,
Right.
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 I like that.
The other thing on that sign, would you want to identify, like, the tennis courts and the pickleball? That was done under the recreation section of,
I think simple and,
Yeah,
Oh, you're gonna
I mean, I
keep it
just
the same.
CPA.
I think,
What
again,
do
I
we
think,
generally have now?
generic works better in this application.
More specific.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because is do we want people, townspeople to know if this is a CPA project? Do they have to know the category that it was under?
Well, that's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
but
But I'm just
it
wondering
could
if,
get a little confusing.
yeah, I'm just wondering if that's necessary, because I mean, people know their taxes are being used for CPA.
Right.
And I would think it would be nice for them to see how their money's being used.
Oh, great.
And I don't know if that they'd care whether it was under the category
Right.
of historic or, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
So,
I-
right, I think your point is a good one in the sense that, what we're trying to do from a marketing standpoint is, hey, look, here's
We're
this
actually
nice thing
doing
that you just
something.
did. Here's this nice thing that you just did. This was paid for with
Right.
CPC funds. Hey, your kid is safe playing soccer because they aren't gonna get mowed down by someone, flying down the street.
Right.
Paid for with CPC funds, like, and so this is the marketing move.
I think
And-
that's what's
And in
important.
some situations, a more specific sign might be appropriate, depending on, this is the place where the Paul Revere Bell is.
Well,
And
and-
so, he did.
I was gonna go there.
It's not necessarily one size fits all, but getting a list is the first step. Getting
Yeah.
a breakdown of what it would cost to put,
Yeah.
a thing, getting a template so we can see what it looks like.
Right.
All that stuff seems great.
Yeah.
All right.
okay,
I see the sign. It's time to move on.
okay.
Brought to you by CPC Fund.
Now airing on Groveland News, Channel 22 on repeat, first of the month.
First of
on
the
Groveland TV.
What's up, Roland?
Got my Groveland, What's Up Groveland plug-in this week. All right, next up, discussion on advocating and voting on your own projects. Now, Mike, you had reached out to Stuart at Community Preservation Coalition.
Yep.
I sent that response that he gave you to town council, which is the other page you see there.
Yep.
And again, this was a conversation of whether you should vote for your own project or not.
So here's what I don't understand, what town council is saying. It doesn't make any sense. His or her basic thing is that you can't, whoever it is, can't vote on it because it's a conflict of interest. So if you look up that section of the state law, Chapter 268A, Section 6A, talks about what a conflict of interest is. And a conflict of interest means that you have a financial interest in, you have a personal financial interest in something. And I don't see where any of us on this committee have a financial interest in anything that's coming before us. I mean, maybe we could dream up something.
No, and
I think.
I am not a lawyer.
I think this is, I am a lawyer, and I think it's way easier than we're all making this out to be.
Well, like I
The town
said,
has counsel. Council's job is to advise us as to the legal, the legal implications of things. We are not to make our own speculation about what the law provides or is or whatnot. We have counsel, we pay counsel for that rule.
and council's recommendation is if you don't like that opinion, to seek a written opinion from the Ethics Commission. And they'll take that under
So I will
advisement.
do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't agree at all with
Okay.
what this says.
Okay.
Noted.
In the meantime, we're gonna follow council's advice because we don't like getting sued.
I have a question on that.
Yes, sir.
And reading this, to me, it makes no sense. I know lawyers don't make much sense at times.
Easy. Ed.
I know.
Easy.
But this written down here, in summary, Mike is not a representative member of the Historical Commission. Therefore, for 46 Washington Street matter, he would need to recuse himself. Why? And then the other, however, as a member of the Conservation Commission, if the commission is the one putting forward an application, he would not need to recuse himself. So
So is it, Ed's point is fair that this is written in a way that's a little bit confusing. Is what they're saying, if Mike is the proponent of a particular project as an individual,
As an individual, it's different than being as
Yeah, but what does that really
If-
mean?
I don't know.
Well,
I'm not a
I mean,
lawyer.
yeah.
Again, I can only go with what they say, like,
No, again, and so we, as much as I hate to say it, we may need some clarification from our council.
well, I think the,
I think we've had
I
enough
think-
from our council.
I think if you just get a written decision from the Ethics
Yes.
Commission, and then we'll just move on with our lives.
That seems
Yeah.
okay, too.
Any further discussion on legalese and lawyer speak?
No, the only thing is one thing that they're missing in the, in their statement here, as the lawyer on the board can attest to, they didn't put in my opinion, which they usually include at the beginning.
That doesn't get us anywhere, Ed.
That what?
That doesn't get it, that's not a legal requirement. that-
No, but it's, they always put it in there.
That's not a thing. If the council responded and gave an opinion, the council doesn't have to say, this is my opinion. The opinion
It's a
speaks for
given.
itself. Anyway, but I hear you.
All right,
Adam, can you send me that so I can forward it off to?
yes.
Okay.
All right. Next up, tree and landscaping project, additional item approval.
Oh, boy. All right, so this is mine too, right?
Yeah, and I had printed out the original application for reference for everybody.
So here is the situation. Under the project, planning, maintaining, and preserving our trees, right? Funded in 2023. Has several parts to it, but one of them is planting and cleaning up an area at the bottom of VZ Park along Washington Street. So part of that portion of the project was to plant 12 new trees to match 6 of the existing maple and oak trees that are there. And these are the trees that are about 20 feet in, not the ones that are along the roadway. So,
Is this where the sledding happens?
yes. So, in somewhere around June of 2024, last year, after we had identified a suitable vendor, they came in and planted the 12 trees, put water bags on the trees, and recommended that, to establish the trees, that they be watered. So we started watering them. It was difficult to keep doing that, so we hired a vendor to water the trees every week. And that worked out for 2024. So this year, again, concern about the ongoing drought and the.
Drought, it's
you know-
been raining for a month.
Yeah, I know.
The Merrimack's overflowing its
It's-
banks.
We're still in drought, though. We haven't made up for all the rain that we didn't get. But anyway, so I consulted with a arborist in town who's kind of been volunteering with us, with the commission. And he recommended that, we water the trees again for probably during the summer months, this time for about 10 weeks. So I put in a request to our town administrator. Our town administrator didn't feel comfortable to approve it and said I should bring this before the committee and ask whether the committee will go along with it. So that's where I'm at.
You know what the next question is?
No.
How
Tell
much?
me. Well, right here, approximately $2,000. that's to include, that includes watering, but it includes other things that need to be done for the establishment of the trees. Mulching around 5 feet around each of the trees, and putting some bracing up on a couple of the trees.
Adam, question. Wouldn't, they were watered last year, when they were first put in. And when were they put in, Mike?
In June,
In June. So they were watered the rest of the year. And wouldn't watering them again prevent their roots from going deeper to seek their own water? When they would, the roots, the newly planted trees should, they're going to, the roots are going to go to the source of the water, so they're not going to get down deep. They're going to be along the surface where they're watering. So I just kind of question whether that's the right thing to do, whether you're encouraging the trees not to seek root properly and seek their own water, where you're going to be watering them along on the top, and they're not going to be able to get properly established. I kind of question that.
Well, a minute ago, Ed was a lawyer, and now he's an arborist. And in both situations,
Well-
we had a lawyer opine about what to handle with the law question, and now we have an arborist that opined about the trees question.
Well, I am a jack of all trades.
I understand that. I don't disagree with that.
I
I-
have one comment, if you don't mind. Basically, we had a nice gentleman in that gave us our speech several months ago, and he was very adamant that CPA monies cannot be used for maintenance.
Yeah.
So therefore, paying somebody several $1,000s to water a tree is considered maintenance.
Or is
No.
it,
No,
or is
it's
it not,
not.
because this is the, like, sort of the establishment of the trees, it's like putting in a
this is not,
thing.
yeah,
I'm not sure,
it's
I'm not,
not
I understand your
maintenance.
point, it's a good point.
It's not maintenance. I think if you were planning on watering them for 10 years, yeah, that might be maintenance, but
Where's the line?
this is not maintenance. The trees haven't even been in the ground for a year yet, you know,
Right.
and so they're not well established. I asked if, you know, that's why I asked an arborist, because, you know, the initial thought is what Ed said is, gee whiz, you know, I always heard that you should not water things excessively once you plant them, but because of the drought, ongoing drought, he said, in this case, during the summer months, they should be watered. So
So how much
that's,
did we pay for the trees?
how much did we pay?
Yeah, like-
I don't remember.
I mean, we made a
Oh,
sizable
yeah, yeah,
investment in
yeah.
planting
They're not-
12
they-
trees.
They weren't cheap,
So
no.
dead trees, I mean,
No, I see where you're
I'm a
going.
little
Yeah.
concerned about that.
I don't want to waste the money on the investment either.
Right,
Right.
But I also have a question,
I mean, that's here.
if I may.
Of course.
As I'm reading through the original proposal on page 5, included in the budget is the purchase of fencing and a drip irrigation system for the first 2 to 3 years until the establishment of the plantings. The irrigation system will be monitored with a timer and checked regularly by VZ Park workers and volunteers from MMGA.
Yes, that has nothing to do with this.
That's not this?
No, that's for the reforestation project up at the top of the hill.
All
It's a
right.
reasonable question, and it's a reasonable answer.
Yeah,
Hold on. Let me look further and see where the
Yeah.
watering is covered.
There's no, it doesn't talk about watering because it's assumed that when you plant trees, you got to take care of them once you plant them to get them established. And, you know, that's why we have that's why in the budget, there's a contingency, because we don't always know what it's going to take. You know,
So is the
again,
contingency in this situation exhausted?
no, we haven't, there's still, in this project, there's still like $40,000 left.
So would it be would it be possible to take this from the contingency portion of the funds that have already been approved?
That's what the goal is, but because
Because it's
Because
not stated in the plan.
it's not
It's
stated
just
in the
like
plan,
It's
it's
like,
a-
it's like an extra.
kinda, yeah.
So if it didn't get approved, what would happen?
Well, we wouldn't water the trees.
And there would be
And they're
a
at
pretty
risk.
strong concern that there would be.
Yeah, I mean, they're at risk. Who knows? We don't really know what will happen. They could be fine, you know, or we could lose one or two of them. I just,
What's your time? I mean, we're looking at water, what, June, July?
just probably from June 15th through September, through August, 10 weeks. And the cost of that, based on previous watering, is gonna be $1,000. Don't quote me on that, but that's my guess of what it's gonna be.
And do we have the ability to do it through VZ Park, where the trees are there? Is it, I don't know if there's water down there.
No, that's the trouble, is you have to carry the water there. And watering them once a week seemed to be adequate. They have water bags on them, so that slows the water going into the ground.
So we're filling the water bag when we're
Yeah.
watering them?
Yeah, yeah.
And how much water does the water bag, is it 10 gallons, 5 gallons, a gallon?
I think it's like 5 gallons, 5 gallons.
I'm learning stuff here.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't even know water bags were the thing. I planted a tree in my backyard. I stomped the dirt down, and it's a 50-foot maple now, and I didn't do a damn thing to it.
Yes.
I didn't water it once.
Wow. You were lucky.
Yes, sir.
And Brian wanted something.
My only question was, it's already been answered now, but I was just curious where the funding was coming from.
Yeah.
So what does it take to make this happen?
I don't know. I didn't expect this, you know, it's
Just
like,
I mean, I think it highlights a bigger problem. And, you know, I don't think I've been shy about saying that I think these projects need extreme detail on them.
well, but, you know,
And clearly, you know,
how could you? I mean, you know, what are you gonna say?
well, I tell you, it doesn't even say you're gonna water the trees.
No, I know,
At a
but-
cost.
But, you know, the assumption is when you plant a tree, you know, you don't say, well, we're gonna mulch it, and that's gonna cost this, then we're gonna make sure it stands up, we're gonna brace it, that's gonna cost, we're gonna water it. You know, what if you said you're gonna water it for 1 year and you need 2 years? You know, it's like you can't be that specific. I think the budget is specific. If you look at all the detail in this project, it's very specific. And, you know, the trail enhancement project that we're putting forward, don't you think that's pretty specific? We went into how many signs we're putting at each location.
And I think that's needed, and I think that should be like the bare minimum.
I know, but, you
I-
know, we're never gonna be able to predict the future as far as what the exact needs are. I
Well,
think,
to Mike's point, you know, a proponent doesn't want to have to come back to the board every time, you know, the slightest minutia changes about a thing. Plant a tree costs, you know, roughly X, right? And includes a lot of the things that Mike has talked about, you know, and may need to be varied based on drought conditions, not drought conditions, deforestation, a bunch of other things. So I can understand that conceptually, and I think that's all well and good. But my question is, if he's got the project there, and it says we're putting trees in, and there's a, what's the term? The overage?
Contingency.
The contingency, right. And there's a contingency available that is not exhausted, and there's, you know, some room in it. You know, the risk of losing trees, that we, you know, this is paying for things twice, and I don't.
No, I
you know,
agreed.
I'm not in on that, and I mean, if the advice of an arborist, maybe you get a written opinion from the arborist that says, hey, this is what we need to go with, because I said so. But, I mean, short of, as far as that, watering 12 trees for 10 weeks doesn't seem like a huge lift. And I can distinguish also, this isn't maintenance because they're not established yet. This is part of, it's the concrete that goes in to get the sign to stand up, essentially.
Yeah, I can see that.
But to Adam's point, I don't know how it's our role to authorize it, because this is a project
Because it
that went
wasn't-
out and was approved, and now it's out there in the ether, and,
Well, no, because it's a change from the original scope, and I think this is how it should be handled.
okay.
The original scope didn't cover for watering those trees, or, established call, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta water the trees, I get it. How do we stop this from happening again in the future? Do we have more detail on the things? But I think this is the right protocol. If something changes in the project that's not spelled out in the project, and an expense goes forward, and the town administrator kicks it back and says you have to go back to the CPC and make sure everyone's okay with that,
Yeah.
that's a great safety check.
Yeah.
This is it working.
Well, I think,
You have to answer a couple of questions.
No, I think you're right. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think that we're going to have to learn as we go.
Sure.
How much, maybe we want more detail, or maybe we want to review more, which do we want?
A little from column A and a little from column B.
Well, right.
I think we should entertain moving the date for submissions up a little bit, so we have another month or two, or double down on the meetings, so we have a little more time to get into the details.
If this amount was okay to be allocated from the contingency, how much would remain
In the,
in the contingency for the project?
well, if you want to,
Well, can I jump on that question and say how much of this project isn't done yet? I know you said there's 40-something thousand dollars. What's still left to do? Of your quick little shopping list in the back.
let's see.
That's a good way.
I just want to make sure we're not taking from something else to water
No,
these
no,
trees.
No. If you look on that last page of the budget, the reforestation pilot part, that's all done. The Washington Street buffer was 31,700. I think that,
This is the area we're talking about, correct?
yeah, there's still almost $6,000 of that left, and the other ones haven't been spent. So nothing's been spent on encouraging citizens, tree seedlings.
Let me get that covered. Guys, plant trees. Send the check to my house.
So,
Okay. I just have one thing. When we finished up the high school, and there was a landscaping company hired, and they came in and did all the trees, the shrubs, everything to make it look nice, bark mulch, irrigation system. There was an item mentioned that if a tree dies within the next 365 days, they have to come back in and replace it. So they have to, the installer, arbor company, whatever.
But these were planted by volunteers, correct?
no,
No, these were planted by a company?
yeah,
and that
Is it
they-
the same
they
guy
should
that's
have
at-
been
saying we need-
invited.
Well, it's been more than a year,
Oh,
right?
okay.
not
No.
quite.
Oh,
Is that
Get any more than a year.
is that the same person that says they need to be watered, or is this something
No,
different?
no, that's a different person. 3 different entities. There's a volunteer arborist. His name is Johnny O'Neill. He lives in Groveland. There's, the company that planted the trees is Rogers in Haverhill. And then the person who may water it is a different company.
And they are the same company that watered it the first year?
Yeah, but, you know, I haven't got the exact
Yeah.
thing lined up yet for that.
So would the money come from the Washington Street buffer zone improvements? or
Yeah,
from
I
the
mean,
contingency?
it could, because there's still money in that portion of it.
Well, unless it's earmarked for something else.
No,
But all the other goals will be able to encourage citizens to plant trees.
oh, yeah, yeah.
We'll be able to
that's-
offer seedlings.
Yes,
So
The
to-
maintenance plan for Elm Park won't be affected by taking money away.
no, no.
Because I look at that quick math, $21,000-ish for that middle section that isn't done, and you said there's 41 left in the project?
Yeah, there's roughly that. You know, in the Washington Street buffer zone part, there still is, didn't I say
You
that
said
in
like
there?
60.
$5,600 still out of that 31,700.
And have all the things in the Washington zone buffer been completed, minus these trees taking?
Yes. There's nothing else that's gonna be
I didn't see,
spent.
well, the fence is not for that, the fence, that's something else.
No, that's up at the top,
that's-
Think I know.
Is that the reforestation pilot?
yeah.
So,
So there, you know,
And, so your $2,000 is a guess based on previous,
yeah.
I mean, I think the plan says you're planting these, is it the maple and oaks?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so it says that you're planting these, and so I think I think it's a fair assumption to say planting them means, and also getting them established. I don't think that you would necessarily need to say, I'm gonna plant them and let them die. You know, you're gonna plant them, and we can assume that you mean to get them to fruition.
right.
And so I would say that the plan covers what they're seeking to do. I would say, based on what he's saying, if his numbers are accurate, there's money to do it. And, you know, so I wouldn't see it, I wouldn't have any opposition to it, because I think it fits with the plan, and I think there's money for it that is in the budget for the plan. So I don't think we're authorizing anything else.
form that as a motion, would you?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the expenditure of $2,000, you said?
Up to 2,000.
Up to $2,000, thank you, for watering the Washington Street buffer zone trees as requested by,
Yeah, watering and the other stuff that goes along with it.
right,
For the
For the
2025 summer.
12 trees, yeah.
We're just talking this year though, right? We're not gonna.
for the 2025
There's
year.
no, he didn't recommend, he doesn't think that it's gonna be necessary after this year.
So, yeah, we'll limit the approval for watering, you said 10 weeks?
Yeah,
For 10 weeks, up to $2,000, taken out of the Washington Street buffer zone improvements, category
Yeah.
of the plan that was put in place. Am I missing anything?
yeah. No, that's good.
Okay, so I'll move that be approved.
I'll second it.
All
Do
right.
I have to say the whole thing?
Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
3. All those opposed?
I'll abstain.
All right, it passes.
I know this is a terrible thing to say, but could you imagine if the locusts came this
Please.
year?
No,
Don't speak it into existence, please.
Just kind
It's
of,
not, locusts aren't in the budget.
well, that's what I'm thinking.
Except Adam has agreed to form the committee to eradicate the locusts.
Oh, Adam,
I did?
my hero.
I mean, I nominate Adam.
I'm down for whatever.
Nice.
Update from town administrator. I did not receive one of those because we're out of sequence on meetings, so I don't think there were many changes in anything. I do know they were expecting pavement to go down at Shanahan I want to say that plants open up the 15th or 16th of April, so it should be any time now.
That sounds right to me. I feel like I heard very similar information.
Oh, I'll give you an update on that particular project. We've
Which-
got
Which particular project?
the one we were just talking about.
The trees?
Yes.
Oh, more
So-
trees.
No,
Should I tell you that I burn wood?
no, that's fine. I don't have anything against that. We have there's still cleanup work that needs to be done there. So we've got a group of volunteers coming in to spend about 60 person hours of work cleaning it up, volunteering from a company that's owned by a local resident. So that's going to happen. We also have, regularly have prisoners from the Middleton prison there come, and they will also be volunteering to.
There's no cost to that?
No. And so a lot of volunteer efforts going on down there to finish things up, and I'm happy with the result. It looks pretty good, and it's going to continue to look better.
Excellent. Love to see the volunteerism.
Yeah, me too.
So is it to set the date for the next meeting?
Setting the date for the next meeting.
What do you have?
Oh, I don't know, you have the calendar out.
When
When do the select?
should the next-
the board-
Second Monday of March,
We meet the second
May.
Monday, so May is the.
May? Good lord.
Is the
I
12th,
went backwards.
it's the 12th, the second.
13? Oh, Monday,
Monday,
Yeah,
right?
12th.
The 12th is a select board meeting.
Oh, it is, okay.
All right, so we want to go first or third?
The first is election night.
All right, so the third Monday in May, which put it the 20th,
the
19th.
19.
19th, 5/19. Why do I feel like that's something?
I'm sure it is.
6:30 PM right here in this room,
May 19th.
May 19th. All right, next up, approval of minutes from the 3/10/25 meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, done and done. Other items not reasonably anticipated at the time of posting. Elaine, anything?
No,
Mike?
No.
Patrick?
Nothing.
Ed?
No, I'm all set, nothing.
Kim?
I'm all set, thank you.
All right, the only thing I had is just a clarification from, I know we talked about it last meeting, and I did the deep dive on that veto project.
oh, yeah.
There was a $2,800 funding of the drawings for that project. I think I said it was 5,000, I don't know, but just let the record state.
Oh, that's good.
So that's it.
Okay.
Okay. I'll move to close the meeting.
Is there anything from the audience?
Oh, thanks. Thanks for that.
Okay, no, hey,
Yeah, I know. It's a
we're
great-
all.
it's a fair question.
Groveland people.
Yeah. So I'll again move to close the meeting now that we confirmed that the public has been heard.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Done. 8 PM, meeting adjourned.
Wow.